There you go. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering, and this lesson we're going to be talking about overlapping your sounds. It's a little bit of a guitar technique that the pros use. If you find that your playing sounds stilted, sounds choppy sometimes when you're trying to play songs, I'm going to show you some techniques to fix that. So there is a PDF that goes along with tonight, which is just a little PDF of the song that I played there, the old traditional song, Danny Boy. It's a very simple arrangement. But sometimes you can listen to, have you ever listened to a guitar player, and even though they're playing something simple, everything is flowing together. Everything is just, it's like a river of sounds that are going in and out, dovetailing over the top of each other. That's what we're talking about tonight. It's a concept of overlapping tones. What sounds particularly great on guitar is strings ringing. And a lot of times when we're playing, we have a tendency to, by accident or not paying attention, we'll mute strings off and we won't let them ring. So if I was not thinking, I would play this like this. And I would play it like that. And I've heard many a student play like that for me. And the first thing I go is, hey, no. You need to let all of these tones overlap each other. That's what makes a song, a piece of music, even just a simple line work together, because these lines are overlapping. Listen to the sound that happens when I just let these notes ring out. So did you hear the difference? Wow, it's just night and day. What's the difference? I played the same notes. I played the same notes both times. It's thinking about where notes end and how long can I make these notes. So it's a little game of how long can I extend the notes. It's the overlapping where the beauty happens in music. So I could play that first three notes is an F sharp, a G, and an A. If I played that, I'd be exactly correct. But look what happens when I just hold on to the only thing I can really hold on to is the F sharp, because the G and the A are on the same string. But do you see how suddenly it makes a whole lot more musical sense? And then look at that second measure. I've got a G and a B. And if I wasn't paying attention, I would just play a G and a B, and then I'd arpeggiate it. Instead of holding it out. Notice how the G and the B are dotted half notes. What I'm trying to get you to do, and a lot of times guitar music is rather cluttered and it's hard to see that, but I'm going to try and extend those out. Let those keep ringing while I start playing the other notes. So by the end of that measure, I've got this wonderful little G add 2 chord sounding out. Just for a second. So much more musically appealing than just playing the notes as they are. And like I said, it's difficult to see it on the music that certain notes hold out. So you just have to kind of play a little game. What notes can I hold out? The next measure, I have a... If I'm not paying attention, I would play the G and the B in the first beat just together and then stop playing that G, because I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I'm moving on to the next beat in that measure. But it's a half note, so I'm going to try and hold it out. And then I switch to a B and a D. But I'm still holding that B. Still holding it. That's the key. Pay attention to how long notes hold. And can you hold them for longer than you are currently doing? That's a little secret that the pros are constantly doing, is overlapping by just physically hanging on a note. I put up a lesson just previous to this where we talked about developing sustain in your playing, and that it doesn't have to do with the latest pedal, but it has to do with how long you're holding down the note. And so the first line of defense when creating sustain is just physically holding the note down more. How long can I keep these notes before I'm just forced to move on to another thing? Oh, look at that one. I have a start out with a C and an A, and that's pretty easy to do. I just take my second finger off. But now look what happened. I have a C and an E. So I've got to hold the E while I move the C. Tricky. Now, is this about learning Danny Boy? No, it's not about learning Danny Boy. It's learning how you can hold notes over the top of each other. And that creates this wonderful illusion that there is more musically happening than there is. And what it takes mentally is just to think about how long you're holding these notes down. So it requires a little bit of hand strength to physically hold these notes down. Whatever note. Everything is ringing out. It's a little game of dovetailing things. But it's these wonderful little microsecond clashes that sound so beautiful. So how do we practice that sort of dovetailing, overlapping technique? Well, a couple things that we can do for that. First line of defense is hold notes down. If there's a way that you can hold something down while something else is moving, okay, what am I playing? I'm just making stuff up, okay? But I'm trying to hold down the bass note while these upper notes are moving. What's a way to practice that? Do just that. Let's say I've got a G and a high G, open G and a third finger G. So the game is I'm trying to give everything held down until I absolutely have to move it. Which obviously open strings are easier to do, but if you can start doing them with your fingered notes, that is going to be a part of it as well. So how do we practice that? Okay. Well, we've talked about keeping your fingers down. We've talked about letting the notes ring. Here's an exercise that you can do. Let's just take a C chord. Okay? So I'm going to hammer on each note, just for fun. There's only 3 fingered notes, so I'm just hammering for whatever the open string is. Add the other open strings in there too. But the game is I want to keep these held I'm layering. So it starts with the C, then adds the E, but the C is still ringing. Then it adds the G and adds the C at the top, but all this other stuff is still ringing. So by the end, I've got everything ringing. So a little game that you can play is just to take any chord. There, I just did a C chord. And go through and hammer on from the open strings. What if I did well, let's do a D. So I'm not just flopping my finger on there, I'm doing it in tempo. Boom, da, 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 da. What if I did a G chord? This is just an exercise, not meant to be musical. Just a little... That's tricky to get that low string ringing and not mute out the others. That's tricky. So you play little games like that. You just pick a chord, maybe an A minor. There I just did, instead of the hammer-ons, I did it in reverse. I pulled them off. So look what I did there. I had one chord. I'm not thinking musically of all the stuff that's happening. I'm just thinking hammer on from an open string. And I ended up with this whole, 8-10 note line, and all I'm doing is playing a little game of hammering on from an open string. And pulling off. It's just a little technique to force your hand to when it fires, to land and be there strong and stay there, engaged. Okay? If you're finding that you're playing this type of technique, this type of detail of paying attention to that is going to fix this sloppiness in your playing, so you don't sound like this. But you sound like this. Do you hear the difference in how this makes? Even right there, this is the third measure before the end. That G is still ringing from the middle of the measure, and I'm doing these other notes underneath it. And just for a second, I have that wonderful tension right there. All right, hold your notes down. Let the strings ring as much as possible. Just play a little game with yourself. Play whatever notes you're going to play and try and build some other things, and let these notes just dovetail over each other. Okay? The other thing is you can play chords and it'll hammer down on these different notes. But keep everything ringing. Keeping everything ringing. That's the goal. What's another little game you can play? Well, Phil Keaggy does this great lick in the middle of one of his songs. Whoa, what was all that? Sounded like Phil Keaggy there just for a second. Okay, all this is, we're in the key of C in this particular song, and we're just going to go up the scale. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And then I think it pulls off out of that. And his thinking is, I'm going to try and, whatever note I want to end on that string, I'm going to hold that F, since that's the last one on that string, while these other things are going. Sorry. So now I did the next string, G and the A, but I held the A. Then I do B and C. And now I've got a little F chord. F is still ringing, A is still ringing, C is still ringing. Now by the time I add the last note on each string, now I have a D ringing and the F string. So I have a little F6 chord. Hear how beautiful that sounds? And he threw his little trill up and down on it. Now that is a lot of that is hammer-ons and pull-offs, which requires hand strength in order to be able to do that. In order to get the hand strength that you need. So we did a lesson a while back on hammer-ons and pull-offs. So I would encourage you to work on that. I work on hammer-ons and pull-offs every day, and I find if I don't do that, and I lay off for a few days, then I just kind of lose the physical strength in my hand to be able to do these effectively and quickly. So hammer-on and pull-offs, that's something that I have to work on. It's a physical thing. I got to work on it every day. But you put that lick in context. Same thing. I just went down the scale. But I kept some things ringing along the way. What am I doing? It's a C scale, and I'm just wobbling on the notes in a C scale on each individual string. By the end of that little lick, I had a beautiful little F with a G chord laying there. I can just keep going. So just play with that idea of letting notes ring, and you'll be amazed at how much more professional your playing sounds. Yes, it requires more thought. You're not just playing the note, but you're thinking about where that note is ending and where that note can overlap the next note over the top of it. So that's a wonderful idea. It's a little tip that the pros use. It requires a little bit more thought to your playing, but it can really create some musical results. Some folks, they play the song, they've got the notes all down the right spot, but it still sounds choppy. There's too much space in between that. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Keep up the great work in your playing, and we'll see you next time.